Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip,
And I'm CJ.
and it is Monday, President's Day in the Rev. And again, the benefits of us being on our own, we can broadcast on a holiday. So,
Yes, it is. And I'm sorry about that slide, our opening slide being there. Today's a cluster because I have so many slides that I have to show during the show, and none of them are numbered properly. So our person who's going to explain these slides has got to tell me which slides he wants, and I'll bring
well,
that. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I guess we can reaffirm. I got a text with an article, I guess, by former reporter about the individual who was shot. Uh,
Yep.
has succumbed to his gunshot wounds and died. So we can do that. We've got a couple of other things we want to talk about, but we have one of our contributors on again with some more numbers. He's attempting to ascend to the level of Rain Man. Right now, he's Drizzle Man. So he's got to keep working at it, but he brings us some really interesting numbers. So with that, CJ, you can bring him in.
Good morning,
Welcome,
gentlemen.
Nelson.
Good morning.
Good morning. On the last show, we hit a home run with the questionable assessments, and I'm on a roll. But it seems that before Santa Claus left Fall River, he left some goodies, some numbers for the Durfee debt exclusion. He didn't leave me. He didn't forget about me. So I want to thank old Saint Nick. So it's going to be interesting. And again, I want to reiterate the numbers you're about to see were from the agenda packet back in 2018, I believe February 6th of 2018, a month before the election took place. Yes, there it is. As you can see, the presentation, it's there. So they did a whole presentation with the site plan of the school, and then they went into the numbers. But before we get into that, I just want to say, it's another tragic day with crime in Fall River. Just another example that we are not safe in this city, and we just can no longer afford to hear, well, it's everywhere else. But there's only one problem with that. There are cities that make safest cities lists. So even with all the problems, so they make the list for the good reasons. And here is just a sad thing to see. So, so CJ, let's start with the show. So it's going to be interesting.
Yes, it is. Okay, so we'll start here. This
Yeah.
is
So
where
that's the
this is where.
beginning.
Yep.
Yep. This was all in that packet. Okay. So stop right there. So there's two calculations with this. There's the residential side, and then there's the commercial side. As you can see here, back in 2018, they said that the average household value, that was that. But as the years go on, values go up, so that's not going to be the average anymore. However, now this is where the city fails to do their job, and they have no excuses now. As you can see, for every $100,000 in value, it was $54 per 100,000 in value. I don't understand how this city can't do simple calculations. So for everyone at home, CJ, as of for tax year 24, which is this year, what is the assessment that the city has your home right now? Total
It's been adjusted. It's around 400,000
400,000.
or four hundred
So
fifty.
okay, so 450,000. So you're in the 400,000s rate. So you do 54 times 4. It's
Right.
216. It's 216. And Mr. Camara, what is the ballpark total assessment for your house so that we can show the city how easy it is to apply a tax bill on the bill?
My adjusted value, and I'm going to have to go try to get it readjusted based on CJ's. Mine is 400,000 also.
All right, so you're in the four. So again, so 216. So you guys in the 400,000s range, and that's 216. So that's the residential calculation. And this was all in the packet during that meeting. In addition, Paul attended that meeting throughout the whole thing, so he knows these numbers too. So let's go on to the next slide. Now, here's the commercial industrial taxpayers. As you can see, the 115 for every 100,000, it's 115. So here's the thing. I believe that if our commercial industrial taxpayers are overpaying because they don't want to show anything, that means, or one could possibly think that our residential property taxpayers are overpaying. I mean, what other explanations could there be for not wanting to show the people when he was the one that went to every single corner of this community showing these numbers on a debt that he brought to this community, and you do want to show nobody? It's unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. So, and like I said, every single city councilor received this in their package, so this is not old news. It was all in there. So let's go on to the next slide. So that's the property tax calculation. So now we're going to go to the municipal budget side of all this. So as you can see here, last year, they said that the full debt exclusion payment was $5.2 million. Okay, as you can see there, right at the bottom. That's what they said. So we're going to the next slide. Okay, I have to zoom in a little bit. All right. So as you can see, they're saying that the 5-year projection as of last year was 5.4. So out of the 5.4, they said it was 5.2. So that everyone can see right there. All right, CJ, go on.
Yeah. You want the next one?
Yes. All right, now, this was in the packet. These were the preliminary numbers. But as you can see, beginning in year 8, and that was the deal. The deal was for 7 years. On the 8th year, the city picks it up. If you go out to the bottom, you see that number, 3601, you add those two together, it's a little over $6 million. Okay, that was the total, that was the deal. And as you can see, before the election came about, the administration at that time promised a full final breakdown of all of this. And you're going to see in the 8th year, you're going to see those two numbers appear in the list you're about to see. So as you can see in this list, now this is the final list. You see that highlighted area? That was the deal. The first 7 years. You count 7 there on the 8th one, you're going to see the 3601. You add those together, it's a little over $6 million. So, and you see in that column, it says in the budget, nowhere are we near 5.2. Nowhere. And then this year, they brought it down from 5.2. Now they're saying that the 5-year projection is 4.8. He's off base again. That wasn't the deal. This was the deal. And this list can be confirmed by a current school committee member, Kevin Aguirre's own post 3 years ago. And I believe, CJ, you have that as well. There you go. This is what he posted 3 years ago. This was the deal, 3.6 for 7 years. Now, Diamond's going to hit before, 2030. But the full payment for Durfee is a little over $6 million. But the municipal budget line item is 3.6. So when that comes down this year and he wants more than that, $1.2 million more, the city council needs to reduce that line item. Because he wants $1.2 million extra for what? To spend how he wants? Well, I have a suggestion. How about we start tightening the belt, reining in the spending? Because I can assure you, when you do that, we're going to see more than $1.2 million in savings. And there you go. He sat there in that chair. He watched the entire presentation, and he knows the numbers. So he can't deny it. Every single city councilor received those numbers. And it's beyond me that someone like myself can go back in time, perform a simple calculation. So I'm looking forward to the next meeting when this goes live. And now look, I want everyone to understand this. I'm not a homeowner yet, but here's what I do know. How would everyone feel if your own bank didn't bother to show you how much you pay towards principal, interest, and how much you build up in escrow? See, that's the difference. They have to follow the law, and so does this government. You can't be secrecy. You can't hide everything like this, especially on a debt. You know, it's very, very troublesome with all the secrecy, but there's no denying it. And there will be those on Facebook that will try to provide political cover, but there's only one problem. They can't hide from the facts. They can't hide from these numbers. This was the deal. So this administration needs to put the numbers on the tax rolls. On the tax bills. If not, if 10 taxpayers were to do a 10 taxpayer lawsuit, I'm pretty sure it's a high probability that the city will lose because they are accountable to us.
The city always loses.
So it's going to be very interesting how all this transpires, but it wouldn't shock me if they have people overpaying probably double than the 216 for you guys. It wouldn't shock me. And it wouldn't shock me if they have our commercial taxpayers overpaying.
Well, okay, let me weigh in here. You've been officially elevated from drizzle man up to moderate rain man. You haven't become full rain man yet, but you're getting there. Very, very good job, Nelson. But look, let me give you a theory, because I can't prove anything either. I can just do a theory based on my experience with this city and how they skim and scam of what they're doing and lie, obviously. And we know the pathological prevaricator Paul is a pathological liar. And this is what they do. They lie to the taxpayers. You pay more taxes and get less. Okay? This is what they're doing. I will remind everybody, and CJ can chime in here, because we went to every single meeting that Paul went to pushing Durfee. And they said at every single one of those meetings, don't worry about any of this stuff. In 8 years, the city can pay the whole nut. Is that correct, CJ?
That's exactly what was said.
And now we know that's bullshit. We're not going to pay it in 8 years. We might not pay it in 16 years, because this is what they're doing, Nelson. You saw that slide from Kevin Aguirre, and I got a pretty good head for numbers and pretty good memory. I think that slide said, he said 3.6. I was just going to say 3.6 for 7 years. Now we're up to 4.8, 5.2, you name it. We're paying more in, but that debt isn't getting paid down much. They're padding it. They're skimming. They promised us something, and now they're going to pay less into it and take more, like they're doing with the retirement system. They tanked the system from 02 to 12 by putting in less money and saying, oh, don't worry about it. We're going to make a lot of money on our investments. You don't have to put this money in. And we went from above the middle to the third worst in the state, where we remain. That debt will be here for a lot longer than 8 years. And we will be paying taxes on that for a lot longer than 8 years. Because this is what they do. They give you a lowball figure, then they charge you more than that lowball figure, and by some mystical, magical reason, it doesn't get paid on time. Think about this. It's pretty simple. If you pay double what you're supposed to on a loan, you normally pay it off more quickly, don't you? I know I do. If I pay an auto loan and I pay more than I have to pay on the auto loan, I get it paid earlier and I pay less interest. Not the city.
That's what I'm doing.
They say 3.6. They're charging us 4 point, we're going to pay 4.8, 5.2, whatever. It's more than 3.6. So we should be paid in less than 7 years, but we're not gonna be. I can guarantee that. So all this is amazing, and you can't undo it. Because the only person that can undo it is they have to do, and here it comes, get ready.
You're gonna swear.
We have to do a audit, preferably a forensic audit.
Oh, there's that word.
Yeah, of this, and I can speak from first-hand knowledge on the retirement system because this is what they're doing again. They did it from 02 to 12. Since then they have it. Now Coogan's going to stick his appointee in there to get the third vote, and they're going to pay less into the retirement system and screw the retirees and the actives, because when they get in there, they'll probably be getting their benefits cut because they're going to skim money. I saw the three different payment options we had. They wanted the lowest. They got the third vote for the one in the middle, so it still cost us $200,000 out of our investment portfolio. They robbed money from their health care, from the retirement system, and now from the Durfee debt exclusion to fund their economic folly. That's what it is. It's all about them robbing Peter to pay who? Paul. Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to you guys.
It makes for an interesting time to see this. Danny Roblat said that at the last budget update, the council meeting shows that the debts are coming in years ahead. Now, is that the debt exclusion that's coming in years ahead, or is that just the regular debt, which is very interesting?
I think it's the deficit that's going up 8.7 all the way up. But when it goes to 2030, which is and like I said, Chip, to your point, he may want $1.8 million, but that wasn't the deal. Like this line item is not a piggy bank to subsidize fiscal mismanagement at the end of the day. Like I said, if he wants an extra $1.2 million, stop handing out jobs and stop handing out the pay raises to your friends. It's that simple, because I can assure you, if you were to claw this like how you go to the dentist, you know how deep they go into the gums to clean out all that bacteria? That's exactly what this budget has. So much fluff, and I'm sorry, to subsidize fiscal mismanagement wasn't part of the deal. And
well,
now
you hit it right on the head. That's the word, fiscal mismanagement. Because let me tell you something. CJ hit a very, very important point.
Yes.
They're talking about debts coming in early. You're talking about debts don't come in early. Everything they do, all the debt we have is not. We didn't have a catastrophic event. They didn't drop a bomb on Fall River and wipe out the city, and we need federal intervention. You're telling me that collective bargaining agreements that they were supposed to fund are coming in early? They don't come in early. They know exactly when those pay raises are due. You're going to tell me that the retirement system is something new? We have a projection to 2035 on the retirement system. There's not a debt. The Durfee debt was defined to the penny during their presentation. They knew how much we were going to owe and how long we were going to pay. This is their fiscal mismanagement biting them in the ass. I went to the elections board to turn in my census last week when I went to a meeting in City Hall. There are like 7 people in that office now. They used to run that office when we had 3 times the amount of people voting with half that staff. Paul's got more people. We got more employees now than we've had in years. And we're paying for it. Their fiscal mismanagement is mind-boggling. There's nothing that they're not supposed to anticipate. I will remind you of the words, and I'm paraphrasing, but I think I'm almost dead on. When our CFO was asked how they were going to fund the police contract, which is going to really be a big nut, because now they reduced the steps, and they're going to get a lot of money, and I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but the money, but you have to fund it by law. Chapter 150E, Section 7. I'll give you the chapter and a verse, which says that within 30 days of the execution of a collective bargaining agreement, it has to be funded by the appropriate body, which in the city of Fall River is the city council. And when Michelle Dion said, how are you going to fund this thing? This was her answer. Well, we're looking at some investments down the road. Well, city councilors, that is not an adequate answer for funding. Did she say these are the investments? Here's the investment portfolios for what we're investing in, who we're investing in, what their track record is. This is what our return is supposed to be. This is how we're going to fund this contract. No! She said we're looking at some investments down the road. And what could that mean? Her and Paul are going to go down to the nearest convenience store and buy scratch tickets and hope they hit them to fund? This is why we're so deeply up to our eyeballs in debt. They have spent money they didn't have, never had, and never will have until they make you lose your house, until they triple your taxes. But they're not going to lay any of their friends off. This is outrageous, and there will be a 10 taxpayer suit if we don't get what we're paying for our debt exclusion, and there will be complaints filed with everybody at the state level. Attorney, I'm going to demand an investigation by the Attorney General. It's too hard. It's too hard to know. How is it hard? Nelson just pulled all those numbers, and he's not a CFO. She's got an assistant, a financial analyst. They got all kinds of help. They got more bodies walking around that thing. You can't even keep track of them without a scorecard. It's like going to a football game. You need a card with everybody's number so you can tell who's on the field. You walk around City Hall now, all you see is bodies. All new faces. I've been going to that City Hall for 40 years. I see faces in there I've never seen before, and a lot of them. I walked into that voter registration office, and I didn't know half of the people in there, and there were a lot of them in there. I never saw that place so full. And we're paying for it. But this is the problem. This is the problem. These people are not held accountable. They go in front of the council, and the council approves it. That should have never been approved. And we need an investigation, because they can't tell us that. You're going to tell me that when they do our tax bill, they are required by law. They are required by law to compute what our tax bill is within the parameters of Proposition 2.5. Now, that's what we owe. And they have to put in the TIFs and all the other stuff, and because we're assuming that bill. But they can't exceed 2.5. And they're supposed to be able to prove that they haven't exceeded Prop 2.5. Then we have a debt exclusion. So now you're going to add the debt exclusion. You're going to tell me they can't figure out? Because if they have a baseline figure of what they taxed under 2.5, they can't figure out that what's left over? That's bullshit. They're hiding it, just like they hide everything, just like they cover up everything. They don't want you to know, and we don't only want to know, we're going to demand to know. It's our money, and by the Constitution of this Commonwealth, They are required to be answerable to us. And if we have to go to court, we'll go. And with that, guys, back to you.
You know, we've had a couple of nice comments, and nice to see you back on, Danny. It's been a while. Dan Robilaud's been here, and he's been saying a lot of things like some are talking about a Diamond debt exclusion. You can't do a debt exclusion for Diamond. The city did not incur the debt. Diamond issues an assessment on the city, and that's how we pay it. If Diamond wanted to have a debt exclusion, they can't do it either because the 4 cities and towns have to pay the debt. So Diamond's basically incurring the debt for the cities and towns that they can't get a debt exclusion on. It makes no sense, but that's the way it is. And do we want another debt exclusion? Joe Camara said it very clearly. Okay? We built all of these new elementary schools, all of these schools, and we never used the debt exclusion. We carried it on our budget. The problem is, Joe, you can't carry it on the budget because Paul has spent it all. He's flushed it down the toilet. He's made it impossible to just carry it on the budget. That's why when Diamond comes in with $6 million assessment, the city's going to be hurting. And there's going to be cuts because there has to be cuts. And there's nothing that can be done. And will any of Paul's friends lose their jobs? No. We'll be cutting police and fire. We'll be cutting people that we need. Can't cut trash anymore because that's privatized. But you can assess fees, which they're talking about.
Listen, CJ, let me tell you something. I negotiated with this city for well over 20 years, nearly 25 years. When I went in to negotiate a collective bargaining agreement, we had to cost out every single benefit, not only the pay raise, but every single benefit. And we had to know it to the penny. And they didn't take our word for it. The city's financial team at the time, who could actually add, subtract, multiply, and divide, went over every single benefit. And we went to arbitration twice, and we had to prove ability to pay to the penny. And in those days, you saw 3% raises, 2% raises, 0 some years when the city was in financial straits, because the government was trying to maintain control over its spending to some degree. Now, the city council didn't even look at the financials. The council, the people who are supposed to be our fiduciaries. Last year's budget, I don't even want to just pass it. Paul said it's okay. You know, he put on 100 people. He's given people $19,000 pay raises. He's given all kinds of pay raises that aren't funded. Who gives a shit? We don't care. Just don't even look at the financials. Don't demand that. Well, it's required by law. It's required by law. But they don't do it. This place is like the Wild West. They do any damn thing they want. Listen, politicians always spend more. But at least there was at least a tiny little bit of attempt to run it and ratchet it back just a little. He got in there, he thinks he's in the school department. Screw it, just keep spending. Let the taxpayer foot the bills. This is out of control to a degree that I have never seen. And that's saying something, because I've seen a hell of a lot in this city, and I've been in the middle of it, because I negotiated a lot of contracts. And I had to go over the finances of those contracts. I had to justify and show where there were funding sources. Not anymore. They don't give a shit. Just spend the money and tax them, because they're all going to bail out. Paulie's out of Fall River. as soon as he's no longer mayor. He only came back to get rid of Meg Mayo Brown. That's the only reason. He got his ass out of Fall River as soon as he retired. And when they wanted to get rid of Meg Mayo Brown, his pals on a council said, "Come back to Fall River, get elected. We can get rid of her." Because he didn't like her because she would never make him principal. So we all know the history. But this is it. I have never seen such fiscal and financial irresponsibility in the 40 years I've been involved in this stuff. And with that, guys, back to you, because this is just, I mean, we're beating a dead horse, but the reality is it's the taxpayer. You got to get your ass out to vote in 24 and in 25, and you got to clean that council out, except for the people who are standing up for you.
Yeah.
I just have just a few comments just to wrap it up on my end. This is why we need to make sure that the assessments on these HDIP properties get corrected, because as you can see, when you have the city participating in questionable decreases, that means those properties end up paying less than what they should be, and at the same time, they're jacking everyone else's up, and everyone's paying more. So that's one. Two, for the diamond calculation, it was $70 per $100,000 in value. So do the math. The 280 plus the 216. It goes up. So I wanted to say that, and then lastly, the city council needs to stand up. This was proposed. When that bill comes down, reduce it. Like I said, this is not a line item to subsidize fiscal mismanagement. It's not. We have a total tsunami coming in 2030. We need to start reining in the spending now, because big government is getting very, very expensive. How expensive? Pretty soon they're going to be proposed with another budget, and I can assure you it's going to be $500 million. $500 million budget's coming down pretty soon. It's unsustainable. And now you have the city participating in the secrecy because they want a nickel and dime. Everyone else talking about pay as you throw and, putting on a tax bill so that, reduces your rights to appeal, which just sounds illegal. There's two Fall Rivers. One for those who get special treatment, and for everyone else, you have to pay for mismanagement and for these HDIP properties not getting assessed properly. It's not fair. And the last thing I'll say is this: if I ever run for state rep, the HDIP program is going to be the first program as part of my initiative, because that program gives those developers a discount on the increase on their properties every year. If I'm blessed enough to be a state rep, I will advocate to remove that discount, because if the taxpayers of this community is going to give you a tax cut, getting your foot into the door, then you can afford to pay the increase every single year, because you're going to be collecting those rents. It's time that they contribute back into the economy and pay 100% of their assessments on their taxes, because what's happening now is not fair. It's nickel and diamond, and is at the cost of everyone else, of people who are 84 years old on Social Security, barely hanging on. So that program will be targeted by me, because it's fair, and it's fair for everyone. So I look forward to seeing what the city council does when this line item comes down in the $4 million range, and let's see who stands up. I have a few, but this is not what the people voted for. It was a set payment schedule, a set dollar amount, and this city needs to adhere to it and show the numbers, because if I can do it, they can do it.
What's really interesting is that you bring up the fact that the HDIP program is one of Fall River's biggest problems, and it is. And according to Ken Fiola, the Delphi, the Oracle at Delphi, and the mayor, these HDIPs can only be given if the city gives a tie. So not only do they get a tax exemption from the HDIP, they get a tax exemption from the city on the tie. This is why these programs are not beneficial to communities. And that's why the report that we presented to the city council, to the mayors, about the effects, the negative effects of TIFs on low-income communities, they didn't listen to it. They don't want to hear it. And it wasn't like it was by some reputable university. I mean, it was only like Columbia and Purdue, nobody real reputable. Maybe if it comes out of Harvard. And speaking of the Harvard study, Joe Cavallo sent me an email telling me about a Harvard study in regards to rents in the communities. And he sent that link to the mayor. And he's waiting for an expedited answer in regards to that. Good luck. Good
Yeah,
luck answering that.
that's like waiting for
He doesn't care. Let's not even pretend that he cares, because we know he doesn't care. But while we're on it, I'm glad you made me segue in. CJ and I get these calls all the time, but I'm going to tell you a story that ironically I heard last night. I got a call from an individual who had a relative, and this is Fall River. This is what's happening in our city right now because of that buffoon. He had a relative who is losing her house, and she's trying to scrape up $1,500 to pay a lawyer to declare bankruptcy so she can get some kind of help to defer them from foreclosing on her house. She owns a 3-family house. One of her tenants hasn't paid their rent in 5 months because they can't afford anything anymore. And she's on Social Security, and she just can't afford it anymore. She's going to lose a house that she's owned for years if she doesn't declare bankruptcy and get some kind of aid. And these are the kind of calls we get all the time. And it's going to get worse. And Danny Robillard was right. It's going to hit long before 2030. When Diamond hits, the floor's going to cave in. What's left of the floor? What's left of this building? This house of cards that Paul has built is collapsing. The ARPA money's gone. It won't be an election year next year. Right now, Healy's trying to shore up as much as she can because the Democrats want to keep the White House and they want to keep their congressional seats, and they try not to show how bad it's going to get. But I can guarantee you, after this election, everything's going to come to an end. But that story is tragic. Tragic. The woman is in her 80s, by herself now. Her daughter lives one of her daughters lives on the 2nd floor. She has a tenant on the 3rd, and she's going to lose her house. She's going to lose her house. But they don't give a shit. Because we're just inconveniences. We're liabilities. We're some kind of subhuman group. We don't have money, and like Bloomberg said, you can't afford an electric car, take a bus. You can't afford meat, eat beans. And if you can't take your dog to the vet, just put them down. That's what they think about us. They just want rich and poor. You can live in squalor. We're going back, nobody wants to study history, but everybody forgets. We're going back in time. Hey, these rich people, you know what they'd like to see? They'd like to see global wage. They can bring all the mills back to Fall River, all the mills back to the United States, pay the people 14 cents an hour, chain them to the machines, lock the doors so they have to jump out the windows when there's a fire in the mill, and screw them. Let them live in abject poverty. That's the world they like. Kenny Fiola can go to Italy on a vacation, and you can't pay your rent. So you know something? That's the reality. With that, I'll turn it back to you guys. That's enough for me for today.
And I was gonna say real quick too, the city council has a role because those HDIPs, those projects do not move forward unless the city council either votes yes or no. It's not an automatic. Just want to make that thing clear too. But great show today, guys.
Yeah, well, you're right. It's automatic, and it's not automatic, and the city council is the one that's working to destroy it, to destroy this community. And as I said in the Weekend Flush, not only is the city council doing it, the ZBA is doing it. The Zoning Board of Appeals is destroying the city by granting these high-end developers variances so they don't have to put in the necessary parking spaces. Did you see the parking on the street during this snowstorm? People were still parking in the parking ban area because there was no place to put their cars. They took a shot on getting a ticket and getting towed. And Chip remembers the fire. I remember the fire. Was that Irving Street? That they were fighting a fire in the freezing cold with the water freezing over their uniforms, and the fire apparatus couldn't turn the corner to get to the building. They had to stay on Eastern Avenue and run the hoses up the middle of the street. This is what we're getting to. And every time the CBA approves a variance to waive parking, they contribute to the destruction. And personally, I think if there is ever a fire and somebody dies because of the parking issue, the ZBA should be sued.
When a developer is asking for waivers for this and that, what does that tell you?
Exactly.
That tell you it shouldn't be approved at all.
That's right.
At all.
That's right.
All the parking is going to make an even more congested area.
Right.
It's beyond me that they approve these things blindfold.
And it's in areas that are already congested, like in the Central Business District downtown.
Yep.
They just approved another development downtown. This is what's going to happen, people. You're not going to be, Boston right now wants to start charging a fee, a $15 fee to drive into the city so they can cut down on traffic congestion. Is that what's going to happen to Fall River? Because I'll tell you now, if Fall River can grab a $15 fee to cut down on traffic congestion, they'll be out there. They'll put the people on the streets collecting it like the beggars. So it's going to be an interesting time.
Crazy.
Sure. Yes, it is. Well, I want to thank you all for watching. This is kind of an extended show today, and I really appreciate all the comments that have been coming in from our viewers, and I'm going to try to get most of them out there before we log off. They got at least 1,200 cars on that snow day. Well, what do you know? Michelle Soars, the head of the ZBA is Coogan's buddy. Oh, we know everyone is Coogan's buddy. There's no question about that. Everyone that's on any board or commission is Coogan's buddy, and Coogan goes, I want this, I want it now, do it. And that's what happens. And that's what's going to happen to the retirement board, and Chip already knows that. So it makes it interesting. The $15 fee, you're right, it probably never would happen. But it's they're trying to do it in Boston. So it's going to make for an interesting time. I want to thank you all for watching. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Wednesday.